Hello everyone, back to you in today's video. We're going to have a look at weather next week, 10 days. For today's video, it's take us to around the 2nd of February. So we've got high pressure building in, I think, for the start of February. And where this high pressure goes is going to be very critical as to the feel of the weather. It's not impossible we might get some very cold weather from this high pressure, but it's also not impossible we might have a bit of an early spring through the early part of February. So it is going to be a bit of a do or die type situation, I think, through the early part of February, in terms of whether we can get some proper cold conditions flooding down across the country, or whether actually we're just going to see that high pressure bring a lot of dry, quiet and fairly mild weather. So I'll show you what's going on in a second. We'll start off having a look at the stratosphere with the charts from meteorsteel.fr. So this is the latest stratospheric temperature forecast from the GFS model for the stratospheric temperature over the North Pole. So right now we've got these blue colours, which are the cold temperatures at 10 HPA, which is one of the top levels of the atmosphere over the pole. Got those blue colours in place, so it's still pretty cold in the stratosphere over the pole. As we run through, we're going to find that a bit of a warming occurs around the edges across Siberia through the course of next week. So around the 28th, 29th. This isn't a sudden stratospheric warming, but it is quite a significant warming that's occurring here across Siberia. And as we move into the end of January, this is the last day of January, we're starting to see some of that begin to penetrate in towards the polar regions. We go through to the start of February, and that warming intensifies again a little bit there on the 1st of February. Again, it isn't reaching quite the level of a sudden stratospheric warming, but it is a fairly pronounced and significant warming that's occurring there. If GFS model is right, at the end of January into the start of February. It begins to have another go then on the 6th. So these are all minor warmings, or sort of, they're not stratospheric, sudden stratospheric warmings, but they are quite significant warmings, one after another, that's occurring here through the final stages of January and into the first week of February. This will probably have a weakening effect on the polar vortex, and so we may well start to see the stratospheric winds, the zonal winds, beginning to die down a little bit into the start of February. But again, I have to emphasise, this isn't a sudden stratospheric warming. It isn't the sort of thing going to rip apart the polar vortex and kill it. It's not reaching that sort of level, but it probably will have an effect of just dampening down some of the zonal winds that we've got at the moment. So obviously we'll be keeping an eye on that. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks. We're looking at London today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Very mild today. We've got a bit of a storm coming up tonight. We could see winds gusting up to 60 or 70 miles an hour, although things will start to calm down again through the course of tomorrow. But very mild for the next couple of days. Then we go a bit cooler at the end of week into the weekend. Then into another very mild spell over the weekend into the start of next week. And then after that, we see the temperatures dropping a little bit to the start of February. That's the 1st of February just there. But again, previous first week of February, we talked about this in the video yesterday, lots and lots of scatter. So we have several ensemble members that are going for very mild upper air temperatures, but there are several ensemble members that are going for really cold upper air temperatures as well. So it really is very uncertain what's happening through this first week of February, and that is primarily down to the exact position of this ridge that we can have building up. I'll show you what's going on in a second. Temperature anomalies from the 12th. I should just say that in terms of precipitation, a lot of dry weather coming up. It will be wet tonight, but after that, plenty of dry weather through to the start of February. Temperature anomalies for the next week, the 23rd through to 31st of January, coming out milder than average for the UK, and many parts of Europe coming out mild and average in weekend as well. Precipitation anomalies close to average, maybe a little bit surprisingly so. You will think these should be drying out. I think they will be trending drier through the rest of the week. Here's the GFS for Saturday then. High pressure down to our southwest, low pressure up to the north, and we're bringing in that southwesterly flow. What happens as we run inside of next week is that the high pressure increasingly builds to the south, still a little bit more unsettled up to the north, so maybe that's why the precipitation anomaly that I just looked at isn't especially dry for the next week, because even to Monday 29th, we're still bringing in a bit of an influence from the Atlantic. But essentially, that high pressure is taking over pattern more and more through the course of next week, building up from the southwest. That's how we look on day 10, which is Friday the 2nd of February, where we're ridging that high pressure through the country and trying to send it up towards Scandinavia as well. We are very close there. Some really cold air flooding our way. You can see how cold it is by the 2nd of February across many northern central parts of Europe. That high pressure, say, it is trying to reach to Scandinavia, but on this particular GFS run, it doesn't come off, and the high pressure sort of flattens again. Still bringing a lot of dry weather to much of the UK. But the main thing is that the cold air then is being plunged down into the east and the southeast of Europe. Look at that, really cold into the east and the southeast of Europe as we remain on the mild side of ridge. We saw a lot of that, of course, last winter. Have a look at the ECMWF. So again, on over weekend, we find that we're in this mild west-southwesterly flow, so it's going to be turning increasingly mild through the weekend, about lasting into the start of next week as well. Then what happens through the middle of next week, a little bit different to the GFS, is that we move this low pressure through the country, northwest to southeast. So that's starting to dig some colder air in from the north, and it's about spring wet weather as well through the middle part of next week. That low pressure clears away to the east, and then we turn the winds into the north and bring down some cold air in the second half of next week. We finish up on day 10 looking like that, high pressure bridging through the Atlantic to our north, which pulls in these cold north or northeast winds. So that's a much colder scenario there for the ECMWF for next week compared to what the GFS is showing. All down to the exact movement of this ridge of high pressure, what it's going to do. Will it allow in those cold north or northeast winds, or will it just about keep them at bay? We'll have to wait and see a little bit longer. Finally, CFS V2 for the next month. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 23rd through the 29th of January. Got above average heights to our south and southeast, below average heights up to the northwest. And we do something like that with flow and with jet stream. So mainly dry for the south, a little bit more unsettled up in the north, and mild in the week ahead. Week 2 looks like that. This is the 30th of January to the 5th of February, and CFS wants to place that ridge across Central Europe, but below average heights are out to the northwest. That leaves us doing something like that with flow and with jet stream. That looks quite mild and dry there, so CFS isn't getting that ridge into a position where it could pull in cold conditions. Actually, that would be a little bit spring-like, I would have thought, with the air coming up from a south or southeast direction. I suppose they could be night frost. This is week 3. It takes us to the 6th to the 12th of February. High pressure going a little bit further north then, going up more towards Scandinavia. So we are having a go at pulling in some easterly winds. I think essentially there is still a southerly component to this wind, so it's not desperately cold, but probably is cooler compared to week 2. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 13th to the 19th of February. The ridge is shifting to our south with below average heights coming back to the north. This is just placing us back in sort of a flat westerly type flow. Quite mild there, and probably turning a little bit more unsettled through the middle part of February. CFS not really seeing anything particularly cold through the first half of February, but we see from the GFS ensembles and from this morning's ECMWF run that the potential is there for some cold weather in the first week of February, but it will be very, very much down and very critical with what happens with this ridge. That is going to be a critical factor. Will the ridge get itself into a position to pull in those cold north and northeasterly winds, or actually will we just keep things generally quite mild, but also dry through the first week or so, first week, 10 days of February? That's going to be the question I'm going to answer, and we can't yet answer it, so you're going to have to do more updates to see where this is going to go. Potentially, though, what we are looking at is a very dry early part of February, which is quite interesting because February tends to be fairly wettish in the first half, and it does tend to dry a little bit in the second half. But we could be in for a notably dry spell, I think, as we're going into February. Temperature, though, very much to be determined. Right, that's all now. 5-day forecast tomorrow, so come back for that then. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.